What is the reason for this epidemic? I think that this new book, Drugging Our Children, by Sharna Olfman and Brent Robbins, of which I have a chapter, is really terrific in going into it. Basically, when I started out in the system, it was acknowledged or recognized that children should not be diagnosed with a serious mental illness, that they go through developmental stages. And we called it seriously emotionally disturbed youth. Children and youth, that's what we called them at the time, SED. And what's really documented in Robert Whitaker's chapter in Drugging Our Children, and even more so in his really great book, Anatomy of an Epidemic, is that the stimulants that are used for children diagnosed with ADHD cause really 6 to 10%, in some cases, well, 6 to 10% to actually have manic episodes, and then they get diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so then they go down that path to chronicity. And the same thing really happens with the antidepressants. And so we saw this explosion of bipolar disorder, not just in children and youth, but also in adults. So that's really a big part of it. And of course, then there's the whole question of why we have so many children diagnosed with ADHD. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Societal is one, is that I think that children are not getting the type of attention and care from parents who have, where both parents have to work in single parent situations where there's no real support for properly caring for a child. And so the children are really not being cared for. I think that we're poisoning our children with all these environmental toxins. There's a huge amount of evidence about this, and there's this pediatrician by the name of Doris Rapp who has done tremendous work on this issue. There are various things. I think she identifies 4 or 5 common environmental things: household chemicals, cleaning chemicals, of course, dust and mold, outgassing from carpets, and you can see dramatic impacts on children's behavior from that. And so when you see the really extreme behavior, like children banging their head against the wall or these totally out of control tantrums and stuff, I think one really has to first look at some of these environmental toxins. In the US, I think there's something like 80,000 chemicals in the environment that have not been tested for their toxicity. So I think that's one part of it. And another part of it is you look at the definition of ADHD, and it's, well, this is a definition of an 8 to 12-year-old boy. Fidgeting, doesn't pay attention to boring teachers, and it's amazing. Bruce Levine, the great psychologist, has written about this a lot. It's amazing that when these same children that supposedly can't pay attention to anything are doing something that they want to do, then they don't have any problems, and that a lot of these children get off the stimulants in the summer. And so we've got basically an educational system that's not taking care of the needs. So we've kind of forgotten that children are supposed to be children. That's their job, is to be children. And we think they're supposed to be little adults, and that's just not the case.